The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers and their Grizzly range. The next generation of Grizzly is here. Meet the Grizzly Ultimate, the most powerful AC Level 2 charger for home use. With a maximum current of 80 amps, that's 19.2 kilowatts. Your vehicle could be charged up to twice as fast as a standard level 2 and up to 15 times faster than a level 1. And of course, it's Wi-Fi connected, so you can take control of your home charging, view stats, set a charging schedule, take part in demand response programs, and control your charger remotely. And that joins the lineup alongside the original Grizzly Classic. The Grizzly Duo, designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a portable charging station. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. Those chargers can adjust the current from 16 amps up to 40 amps, that's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, the Grizzly Ranger IP67 rated, built in Canada, and with the highest quality materials. You can order yours right now. Go to unitedchargers.com, that's unitedchargers.com. Hello and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's Friday, 20th of September, 2024, and this is episode 55. Today, we'll talk about the Tesla Superchargers opening to General Motors EVs and what it means and why there is a $225 implication. Terawatt announcing a semi-truck charging corridor, and Alpitronic officially opening its US headquarters. Some of us were even there. Wasn't me, obviously. And of course, much more. I'm your host, Martin Lee, from the EV News Daily podcast. But joining us today is the congenial Mr. Tom Malogany, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. He's had a busy week, I think it's fair to say. We also have Dominic Yoni, longtime EV journalist and host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic. And of course, Kyle Connor hopefully will join us later on the show today from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Out of Spec Studios, where he makes high voltage videos for his YouTube network. Well, the big news this week, Tom, we'll dive straight into it. You got the exclusive. I said on my daily EV News Daily podcast, if anybody's not heard it this week, we do it in audio platforms. I should do it back on YouTube. That we got some insights from you in our little internal group chat that we have. It went live at 8 a.m. in the morning this week. You may have had some exclusive advanced access, and it also may have been helpful that you have one of their vehicles and they didn't have to mail you anything because you have plenty of adapters. Of course, the Supercharger network now being open to General Motors vehicles, which is different to what NACS and J3400 is, but also kind of the same. But the drivers don't get a free one, which you've never been a fan of anyway. Tell us all about how this happened.
Yeah, so it was a busy week last week. I think I tipped my cap a little bit, or tipped my hat a little at the end of the show last week, because one of the followers said, hey, when are we going to hear about GM? Or I think there was some buzz going on at a deal. Some dealership posted something, and I just said, I don't know anything about that, with a grin on my face. So I think everybody kind of knew this was coming if you're on the show at the end of last week's show. So yeah, I'd been working with GM for more than a week before the official opening, and they actually said that they were going to allow me to be the only one to have advanced access and charge a car. And the interesting thing is, you said it didn't help. It helped that you had a car and you had an adapter. The people in the PR that I was talking to actually didn't even know that. They're like, we have to try to get you a car, and give us your address. We're gonna ship you an adapter.
Wow.
We have to get you one of these. We don't have many of them. And I was like, just relax. I own 2 of your cars, and I have 10 adapters in my garage. So they're like, really? I was like, yeah. They're like, okay, well then you're all set. Just send us your VIN. And I had to send them my VIN and do some things, because they had to remotely enable my vehicle ahead of everybody else's vehicle to be able to charge on Supercharger. So I could do it for a week. I was able to access Superchargers, and I couldn't go around doing it because I didn't want to get photographed or have somebody come up to me and be like, hey, you're not supposed to be doing this. Why is that working on your car? So I went to the Superchargers like kind of early in the morning and stuff, and late at night to make sure everything worked. And then I shot a video just a few days ago. The good thing about it was the GM enabled a Magic Dock supercharger station near where I live so that my car could charge there with an adapter. So it didn't look unusual that there was a non-Tesla vehicle at a Magic Dock location. But if somebody walked up close, they would have saw that I wasn't using the Magic Dock. So that was pretty good. It was thought out. So I made a nice video on it. The only thing that I'm a little disappointed in was I got some incorrect information from GM. So, we had a Zoom call and we had, tons of emails back and forth. And I tried to get as much information as I could about it. And what they told me was, look, it's going to work on all the vehicles except the Bolt. It won't work on the Bolts. Chevy Bolt owners are going to have to go to their dealer and get a software update, which I really wasn't 100% clear on why that was going to be the case. But, that's what I was told on multiple occasions. So, I said that in my video, and they also wrote it up on the Inside EVs article that wrote about my video. And then we found out immediately people were plugging in Bolts and they were working. I didn't even try my Bolt because they told me it wouldn't work. So I have an Equinox, so I'll make the video with the Equinox, and then I was going to call my dealership and get the Bolt updated, some type of software update. So then people are responding, "Hey Tom, it works. I don't know why you're saying it won't work with my Bolt." So I contacted Jim. I'm like, "People are telling me I'm wrong. It works." Okay, let me get back to you. I got an email back later. I said, "Okay, here's the deal. It actually is only 2019 and 2020 Bolts. The earlier Bolts and the later Bolts are fine. You don't need a software update." So I'm like, "Oh God, I'm out there saying it won't work, and bad info." So then I put a correction out and said, look, it works on just 2019, 2020 Bolt EVs. Then GM contacted me again. They're like, only some 2020 EVs or Bolt EVs will need the software update. And I'm like, oh, like how many corrections am I going to make? Now we find out most 2019 and 2020s will work. It's just if you have some sort of a problem, like a glitch, a communication error that prevents it from working, then go get the software update. So now the recommendation is kind of like just charge away. But if you have some sort of if you incur some kind of glitch when using superchargers, take it to your dealer and they'll get and they'll do some type of software update. So, it'll be compatible. So that was the only it kind of tarnished the whole exclusive early access thing to me because I put out incorrect information, but I can only put out what I was given. So that was disappointing. Now as far as the free adapter, you're right. I've never been a super fan of giving the adapter away for free. I don't like free things. I think free always gets abused. Even if Ford and Rivian had like a nominal fee, like $25, pay for shipping, something like that, I think it would have been a better program because I know there's people that just got them that will never use them. And they even have told me, yeah, I'm never going to use it, but it was free, so I signed up for it. And I think that caused the congestion, the shortage of them early on, where we still have people from Rivian and Ford that ordered them in like April and haven't gotten them yet. So I think Ford and Rivian went too far. I think GM could have met their owners halfway. Maybe discount on it if you order in the first month. We'll give you a discount or something like that. But take a little bit of the edge off. But I'm fine with them charging the $225. I'm fine with that.
So their plug-in procedure is different to what Rivian and Ford recommend in terms of the order, but I can't work out why it would make any difference either way. Am I getting that correct, or am I getting that confused with the Electron instruction because it's easier to pull it out when it's in the car? What was that?
Yeah, that was mostly. I think the Electron is the odd one here, Martin. I think most of the manufacturers are saying, remove the adapter and the connector once, and then take your adapter off the Tesla connector. But because Electron had some tolerance issues where it was too tight with the connector and people couldn't get them loose, they're telling people leave it connected to your vehicle because now it's a strong base and you can kind of pull it harder off of the adapter and then remove the adapter. That's not the big difference. The big difference is, in my opinion, it doesn't authenticate to plug-in charge like it does with Tesla and Rivian, where with those, once your vehicle is enabled, if you enable plug-in charge on your vehicle, you just plug in and it starts working and it bills through your native app. That doesn't work with GM. With GM, you've got to open your app, you've got to select the site, select the stall, plug the vehicle in, and then hit start charging. You have to manually start the charging session, which is no big deal, but it's interesting that it's different. And it's interesting to me because GM vehicles have plug and charge. Like I use plug and charge on EV Go network. Now it's auto charge, a little different, but they have the ability to do that. And it's just that, I think they decided that's how they want it to work. By manually turning it on either from the car or the vehicle. I'm sure they could get it to work. I know Nebula saying not plug and charge. I'm certain, I'm pretty sure that if they wanted to make it work that way, they could. But maybe there is a technical reason why they can't. But that is how it works. You have to manually go through the app and turn it on.
Obviously, I'm not there. We don't get those vehicles, but I thought plug-in. Nebula would know more than I do, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you're pretty
technically auto charge.
Deep in that. I thought that was plug and charge on something like the EV Go network. I had thought that GM vehicle built on Ultium could do proper plug and charge with the rest of them, but again, I'm wrong on that.
EV Go use auto charge. It's
auto charge. So that is is that the one where you have to charge the first time and then it remembers the VIN? Is that right? It works like that? Or remembers your car?
Yeah, I'm not certain that you have to do that.
Okay.
Perhaps it is, but I'm not sure technically that's how it works.
Right. So that's interesting that you can, they recommended using the My app, so that, the My Chevrolet and the My brand app.
Yeah.
But you can use the Tesla app. And of course, I find personally in the Superchargers over here that are open to third parties, at least in the UK and Europe, the Tesla have some of the most competitive pricing. I don't see as much of the day-parted pricing, but I know it's more popular in the US and in North America, where actually, depending on what time of day you go to a Supercharger, you can pay significantly less than the competitors. So there's nothing to stop you having a Tesla account and enabling the charge that way, Tom?
Yeah, well, in order for you to get a discounted rate, I'm pretty sure not only you it's not just authenticating through the Tesla app. You then have to have a membership.
And we have the membership as well, but it's also
like
the
$12 a month though.
Yeah, we have that as well, but just the per unit rate, the per kilowatt hour rate, I find Tesla to be way more competitive than some of our other networks here. So you can do that, which is cool.
Yeah, well, I think the way it's going to work with this is you'll pay the same amount unless you have a membership on the Tesla network and pay the $12 a month. So, if you're not going to use it at least once a month, it doesn't make a difference. I think the pricing is going to be the same because you're going to be viewed as not as a member when you use your Tesla app on the Tesla network as a guest. And that pricing is going to be the same through Chevrolet. So I don't think it'll matter unless if you're a heavy user, if you're going to use the Supercharger network all the time, it's probably best to then just get the membership and pay the discounted rate. And also it's if you really want to save money, it's dynamic pricing. The pricing changes during the different times of day and at different locations. So if you do a little homework, you could save some money by charging at different charging stations at different times of the day. So getting back to GM stuff, I just made sure that all the adapters were compatible. They are. I tried them all on my Equinox. The interesting thing is GM has also said that they're going to use multiple suppliers for the adapters. And it is believed that they are going to be using the Electron adapter as one of their supplied adapters, but either rebranded or not have the Electron name on it, or maybe it will even say Electron. So they'll be selling that adapter for $225. Right now, you can buy that adapter from the Electron website for $199. And I have 15% discount if you use state of charge. So now you're talking $170 versus getting the same adapter from GM for $225. So, you could save some money, and it is the same adapter. They're also going to be selling the the Tesla adapter also, but you know, uh, that they have said that they're going to use multiple vendors. They didn't tell me who, but I think they're trying them all out. Testing all the different companies, and we might see more. I mean, this is why early on I did the adapter comparisons and videos, and some people said, "I can't believe you're recommending adapters that people aren't authorizing." I know that the Electron adapter and the A to Z adapter are fine. And I've seen their engineering. I've seen the reports on both of those from the factories where, the A to Z adapter, they ran at 500 amps for 48 hours straight continuously. And there was no issues with it. No, all the contacts were great and everything. And I know other companies are testing these for, to endorse. I think the reason why we haven't seen anyone officially endorse the A to Z adapters, because if you remember, the first version of it had that manual lock, sliding lock. They would never endorse a manual lock. So that set A to Z back because they had to re-engineer it and come with the automatic lock, which the Typhoon Pro has now. So, but anyway, so I used it on that. I made another video, which I haven't put out yet, of me charging my Bolt to explain the issue with the fact that I first put out information that said you had to take it to a dealer. You don't have to take it to a dealer. I'm going to have that video out in a couple of days. I charged from 20% to 80% of the Supercharger with my Bolt. It was the same length of time as it would take me on any charging station. I mean, you're only going to get about 53 kilowatts max, no matter what you do. And then I tried both the A to Z. That's the A to Z Pro that I'm using up there if you're watching on YouTube, and then the Electron. I tried them all. And then did the full recording, and it's everything works fine. And it's funny thing is, I didn't do any thermal testing with the Bolt with those adapters because they didn't even break a sweat at 50 kilowatts. They weren't even warm. I mean, if I'm charging my Rivian at 220 kilowatts for a full charging session, with on a Tesla Supercharger with the adapter, it's not breaking a sweat with 50 kilowatts. So. And then, I did the full recording. I'm going to have that video out in probably in a few days.
Look at that. Minutes, 120, 140, 150 minutes.
Wow.
Woo, 173 minutes. That's some impatient Tesla drivers waiting behind.
I think that was to 100%. Like, it took less than 50 minutes to charge.
But people do. Look, we said this before. People charge to 100% for various reasons. I'm big with you on free. I hate free. I think that the free charging should stop at 80%. So if you want to do an OEM deal with a charging network, as many of them do, stop at cap it at 80% and move on. I think it devalues, because electricity isn't free just because you can't see it. And so a lot of the charging networks, when they open up a new station, they'll be free for a week or free for a month to get publicity. And I hate that because it devalues the product. That free is not free. That someone's paid to make those kilowatt hours. And so do discounting, absolutely, to get more people in. But I hate the idea of it. I got sent a thing. So YouTube, so I paid my $10 a month to get the ads gone on YouTube, because I spend all my time on YouTube. And I think that used to be called YouTube Red back in the day. And I got like an email saying, because they had an online gaming thing called Stadia. And they're like, hey, do you want a free, the Google thing that plugs into your back of your TV and with the HDMI and it becomes a smart TV, and we'll send it to you for free. I'm like, yeah, I never used it. I remember throwing it away. I was thinking, should I eBay this? No, it became landfill, and that's awful. So yeah, free is really dangerous. So we should be paying for stuff. Other stuff on the V3s, on the Superchargers. So V3 is, you've seen it in the video with Tom. What you would think a Supercharger looks like. The V4 dispensers are much taller, have much longer cables. In your video, Tom, you addressed parking in the wrong space. I don't think there is such a thing as a wrong space anymore now, that because if they say we've done a deal with GM and we're making some money out of it, I think a GM driver is entitled to be, regardless of that big shiny light up Tesla logo. I think you are as entitled to be there as a Tesla driver, because that's the corporation has said that. So there's no such thing as the wrong space. But now they're talking about some cables, some extension cables. That sounds horrible. We shouldn't be using those, should we?
Well, if they're safe, that's the thing.
Okay.
I know the whole thing is, if they're safe. I mean, we could be armchair quarterbacks and YouTube engineers all we want, but if they're made to work safely with temperature controls, I know A to Z put out a short video showing that they're in final stages of validation. They're going to be sending me one of them soon. And they are going to send me their engineering reports. They have temperature sensors at both ends of that extension cable. It's about 6 feet long. And when they posted that, someone, an engineer from Tesla, was like, "Don't use these things."
Right.
We have a temperature sensor at our connector. As soon as you plug in with one of these things, you lose temperature sensing. And A to Z responded like, "That's not exactly true. We have temperature sensors in here, the same ones we have in our adapter. The adapter, they work the same way the adapter does. And as long as it doesn't hit what is considered unsafe, it should be fine." And so to the Tesla engineer's credit, he responded, "Okay, I'd be interested in looking at this." So now A to Z is engaging him, and I don't have any official information on this, but I do believe Tesla will be taking a look at the extension cables. It makes sense for Tesla, unless they're just not safe. Because if they're just not safe, okay, I get it. But I do believe we're at a point where we can engineer something that's not that long. It's not, this thing isn't 50 feet long. The longest would be 5-6 feet. And that's all you would need to be able to park any vehicle in a Tesla Supercharger stall. But it benefits Tesla because now they're not losing all these stalls. When you think about it, there's not a lot of cars that are authorized now. It's Ford, Rivian, and now it's GM vehicles. But this is going to continue. Volvo, Polestar, Kia, Hyundai soon, Mercedes soon, Nissan. Just think about it. There's going to be more. There can be more vehicles charging at the Superchargers that are not Teslas. And once you have 4 or 5 cars taking up 2 spaces, now it's a huge problem. Right now, I've only ever seen one other vehicle, non-Tesla, at a Supercharger when I was there. But that's going to change quickly. So, once this happens, there has to be some kind of solution. I know a lot of people say, "Well, just Tesla should swap them out with longer cables." I don't think they're going to do that. It would be extraordinarily expensive on their end. It'd be so much easier if they could approve an extension cable as long as it's safe for use. A lot of people say, "Well, the cables are liquid cooled. So how can you have an extension cable that's not liquid cooled?" Well, it's not liquid cooled from the port to the inside of the vehicle where it's making its connections to the battery. That end's not liquid cooled. So it's not like the entire thing from the charger to the battery itself has liquid cooled cables. So we'll see. The companies that I talk to claim that they can do it safely and that they've tested them in labs with running high current through them, and they're not tripping temperature sensors.
Right. But how much would these things cost, though, Tom? Like I know the connectors themselves, they would be
just
expensive. The connectors are really expensive. So like a 4 or 6 feet of heavy duty cable, man.
I don't have any insight on that, but I'm guessing between $300 and $500.
Yeah, easy. I think that would be.
That's what I'm guessing. And here's the thing:
I'd rather take up 2 spaces.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. You're asking people to buy something, to spend their hard-earned money, not to inconvenience other people.
Yeah,
right.
It's not going to happen. I'm allowed to charge here. I'm really sorry. I've done my best, but I'm allowed to be here.
Right. So, but not always. There will be times where you can't park in the stall next to you. Like, you'll have to wait till there's 2 stalls next to each other open. So, that's we'll see how that plays out. I know if it's proven to be safe, I'll have one. Well, I'll have one regardless because I'll do my own testing. I'll have thermal imaging on it the whole time. I'll I'll charge in a hot area. You know, I'll charge, you know, my Rivian from dead to full on a supercharger, and we'll see how hot the thing gets. But you know, I think that we can technically overcome that and make it work.
Well, it's great news to hear that the Bolt can use it, because there's a lot of excitement and conversation around the Ultium vehicles and Ultium technology. The reality is, all the GM EVs on the roads at the minute are Bolts. And if I'm, you know, painting with broad brushstrokes, that's the car that's out there at the minute, and it charges very slowly. And I'm delighted that they are going to work. Not delighted to hear that the only way to know if you have to go to the dealer to have it plugged into their diagnostics and get an update is if you go to a supercharger, try it, see if it glitches. If it does, then you go. And I only hate that for the same reason that I hate the fact that it's not using plug and charge, because they physically can do that, I think, with the Ultium technology. Proper plug and charge, because I really want to get to a situation where I use my focus group of one, which is my wife, who's not into cars. She uses them to get places. And, you know, she just wants to feel nice driving the car. She wants to feel safe. She knows what she likes, but she's not really into like the nerdy EV stuff. And so I want to get to a stage where someone like that turns up anywhere and plugs the car in and walks away, and it just starts charging. And we're nowhere even close to that for so many brands yet. So that's a shame. Maybe they physically can't do that. I need to educate myself more on the hardware that's inside Ultium to see if they physically can use that standard. Dom, before we move on, let's give Tom a break. What are your thoughts on the GM news?
Well, first, I just want to add this little thing that so Kyle couldn't be with us right now. He may pop in a little bit. I got a text from him. He thought he was going to make it, but he's going through airport security somewhere. So
that's not the time to be doing a live stream when they're
right.
when TSA are there. They look quite a dim view of that, apparently.
Yeah, he's had a super busy week. He doesn't put a lot of videos on out of spec, but he's been super busy organizing a big thing and going. Tom saw him yesterday, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, but going back to the GM getting supercharger access, I mean, that's awesome news for drivers, for starters, and it's awesome news for GM because it's just it just makes their vehicles, you know, so much more palatable, I guess. You know, it just makes you just have fewer worries about, you know, driving anywhere with your Equinox or your Chevy Blazer. I mean, actually, GM's got like 6 or 7 vehicles out there now already, like with the different Cadillacs and there's like 4 Chevrolets. Yeah, Celestic's not out yet, I don't think. But did they say anything to you, Tom, about the Bright Drop vans?
No, they said all currently sold GM electric vehicles.
Okay. So the Chevrolet Bright Drop vans can probably park there too, or charge there too, and that would make them, you know, much more attractive, I think, than I guess maybe the Rivian's vans could too, but I don't know if Rivians really do that. But yeah. Anyway, I think it's great news for GM owners, and
it is.
I think it's going to really open up the whole world of EV driving and charging just that much more, because GM's such a huge company, and, you know, regular American consumers just see it as like really a mainstream brand that they have confidence in, and it just makes everything so much easier with the ownership experience.
Yeah. Having a look at the comments here, Mark pointing out that when Kyle comes over here to Europe, he says we don't seem to have problems with charge port locations. I mean, I've never seen any frayed tempers at the open ones. I've never even really seen frustration. I mean, maybe everyone's being terribly British.
They don't have longer cables there, do they, in Europe?
No.
Not particularly, but they have a lot of pull-through stations too.
Yeah,
more than we have
those
here.
Are nice.
Yeah, we do angle them sometimes, so you pull alongside it. So that's good. Next week, Matthew's saying, you've lost some weight, my man. Yeah, I have, like 35 pounds. That's been a thing this year that I won't get into now, but a health thing back in May required me to make some changes. So yeah, big changes this end. And I'm glad to be back on my podcast, by the way. I had to take some time off. I was always here for the Friday shows, though. I always made this. And So yeah, thank you for that. Always nice. And before we move on, anything else in the comments? I'm having a look. Oh, one thing that struck my mind, Tom, is if anyone's a super nerd, I guess if they buy an adapter from GM that's sourced from a third party, they'd be able to tell who made it, even if it's debranded or white labeled, because unlike, say, an Apple MFI cable that is, certified Apple use, whatever. It's just, it's an Apple cable that charges my Lightning or my USB-C technology. Like the physical design of the Electron, the A to Z, the Tesla adapter, I mean, they're all quite physically, they all do the same job of just transferring power, but they all look different. So I guess if you are a super nerd, you could tell which one's been bought because you could just compare them.
Yeah, they don't change the look of it. They might take Electron off of it, or I'm not sure. I haven't talked to anybody that received one yet, but it is what it is. So
yeah. I just had another thought. I guess this would also take some pressure off EVgo and Electrify America chargers if a lot of people start charging at Tesla superchargers if they're all kind of in the same area. So that might be very helpful for the other networks until they build up their networks, and we have the other new one coming in as well that we're still waiting on.
Yeah, it probably will help them, but we're seeing such an increase in throughput on these stations. I actually was in a meeting yesterday talking about the increase in throughput in DC fast charging, and across the country, the US, across all networks, there was 30% increase in DC fast charging plugins in 2024 compared to 2023. That's incredible.
Wow.
So an extraordinarily higher amount of vehicles year over year plugged in on DC fast chargers in 2024 over 2023. And it's just going like this. It's just spiking right now. And I could tell that. I'm not surprised because it's hard for me to get a DC fast charger to do a charge recording. And sometimes I ideally like to have two stalls so I can set up cameras and stuff next to it. And forget about that unless I go late at night. And that just wasn't the case even, a year or so ago. So obviously this is regional. We haven't seen huge spikes like that in some areas, and some of the other areas that were always high utilization, like California, might not have seen that much of an increase. But across the country, a tremendous amount of increase in plugins on DC fast chargers. So even with this, Dom, there's still going to be overcrowding at the station, but it'll help.
Right. Just take off just maybe some of the strain in some places, I guess. We'll take what we can get at this point.
The show next week may or may not be live, and so one of the things that I think that we probably should do is build a community
talk about what's happening, though.
We can't talk about what's happening, but we may have to record that late on Thursday night or late in the evening, and it'll go out. We'll still press publish at the same time, but then we may be busy. Can't talk about it yet. What we should probably have, and I'd like to form over the next few days, is I don't know how to do this. Maybe a community of people who are always in the comments, and so you are so valuable to this podcast. And if you're listening to the audio version days later, you're really valuable to us as well. Thank you for listening to this in your ears. But if you get involved with the live stream on a Friday morning, Eastern, or afternoon for me, and here in Europe, the comments are as much of the conversation as the 3-4 of us on screen. So when we record a show, we lose that. So I'd love to build a community of people that are like, hey, yeah, I'm around Thursday night, and we can invite you into like a private webinar kind of way, the way that we record this show. Maybe not this time, but either way, some advance warning. Next week's podcast may be slightly time delayed. Let's say that. Maybe like a WhatsApp group, or I don't know how to do it, but anyone who has experience with this, let us know in the comments, and we'd like to build that, even like a group of 20, 30 people that are like, hey, I'm around, I'll join you for the live stream, and then we can add your comments on screen. Super important. Now, I think that the Ford F-150 Lightning has been sold in European countries. I think they sold it in Norway. I think they sold it in Switzerland or Austria. But either way, that didn't stop Maxus, the MG sibling brand from SAIC, putting out their press release this week saying the e-tron9 is Europe's first four-wheel drive electric pickup truck. And I thought, maybe the Lightning was first. But either way, they did do one called the T90, which is rear-wheel drive. Not always useful rear-wheel drive if you're going to have a working truck. But this looks like a pretty decent truck. It hasn't got the superpower mega frunk up front, but it's a pretty decent frunk size, 102 kilowatt hour battery, 260 miles of range. Decent fast charging on this, and it opens, at least in the UK, for ordering in October. Personally, I'd love to have a right-hand drive Lightning. I have been in the Lightning here in the UK from somebody who imported one. It didn't feel ridiculously large. I mean, it felt great to be inside, much bigger than the vehicles we normally have, but loads of room in the back as well. And so, hey, please, Ford, bring it over here. We'd love it. However, and Dom's just showing that on screen right now, it looked at this Maxus e-tron9 looks quite compelling. It's got a pretty decent payload. It'll tow pretty well, all-wheel drive, and yeah.
The payload number I saw looked really odd, though. I don't know. Do you know what their actual proper payload is?
I know it's lower than its competitors, so it's lower than it. If you had like a combustion version of a, this size, mid-size from Toyota or Nissan or something, it's less than that. And that's the question: why don't those car makers that have trucks in their lineup sell trucks over here? Well, we don't buy them. But do we not buy them because they're not on sale, or other car makers, smart and savvy, and say, well, we're not going to put this on sale in Europe because people don't want it. They want to buy, I'm going to be a bit of a cliche here, white vans. And we do just all drive transit vans and, Renault, Masters and stuff like that. Truck culture is not a thing here. So I put it on sale by all means, and that's obviously why Ford haven't done that with the Lightning, because we don't have truck culture. But oh my goodness, the US does. And when someone like Tom Malogany says, hey, come round to my place, we're going to cater, bring your Ford F-150 Lightnings, boy oh boy, did they show up. Tom, how many trucks, and more importantly, how many pizzas did you serve at your party?
So yeah, we had a good time. I haven't put together a video yet, but I see you have some of the clips that I posted. I did the second annual Ford F-150 Lightning party at my house that Ford was kind enough to really sponsor and did all the heavy lifting. I just hosted it at my house, did a demonstration of the Ford Intelligent Backup Power. We faked a power outage, and I had the truck plugged in so everybody could watch how the system put the power back on in the house. You could see, if you're watching on YouTube, my driveway. There's I think there were 22 trucks in the driveway, and then they started lining up along the front. You see all the way out by the front by the street. We started lining them up by the street. So we had 29 Lightning altogether. Last year we had 18 Lightning. So we get a lot more than that. Maybe next year we'll shoot for 40. That would be a good number. So yeah, we had a good time. We had Ford gave out a bunch of merchandise, Ford branded Yeti coolers and stuff like that, and they catered it. We had a caterer come, cooked barbecue chicken, burgers. We also used the Lightning to power the two pizza ovens, the small ones that I used when I did the race to Florida with Kyle and Pete. And we cooked, I think, 30 pizzas. I think it was 15 cheese and 15 pepperoni. And then that's where the caterer set up the grill. And yeah, it was a really good afternoon. Weather was perfect. We had people drive from Detroit, from Ohio, from North Carolina. We had people drive from all over the place to come up, and it was a great day. It was everybody driving by the house was stopping because Ford had a representative down by the end of my driveway to tell everybody to back up and to park people and everything, the right way. And everyone driving by was like, what's going on here? It just looked so crazy to have all these same trucks, lined 30 up.
30 Lightnings out front.
Yeah.
I got some sound on there, Dom.
Yeah.
Oops,
and this was, in the beginning where we were all just talking, and that's down by my pool area. And it was really nice talking to the community. And then for those two red trucks were Fords. They're the ones that we were using the Pro Power onboard to power a freezer and cook the pizzas and everything. So it was a great day. We had a super time. I was happy to be able to host it. Joe Scholes, who's the founder of the F-150 Lightning clubs. He started one chapter a couple of years ago. Now there's like 18 different chapters and thousands of members across the country. He does a Supercharger. Between Joe and Ford, they did all the heavy lifting. I just agreed to host it at my house, and I gave away a charger. I gave away an Emporia charger. I gave away some state of charge swag. Ford gave away water bottles, coolers, all kind of stuff. So it was
Nice.
it was a good time.
From how far away did some people come?
Well, I think the furthest was North Carolina, or either
Okay.
that or Detroit.
That's a
So
drive.
yeah, it was it was a drive. But
Yeah.
there were people that it took the entire day to get here. Between the distance and stopping, or at least 8 to 10 hours. So and don't forget, the party was only for 4 hours. So drive 8 to 10 hours, hang
Wow.
out for 4 hours, and turn around and drive 8 to 10 hours again. That's a tough drive, but I think it was worth it. Everybody had a good time.
Not in the running order that we discussed before the show, Dom, but can you bring, as we're on this topic, I'd love to get your thoughts from you and also from Tom on the Ford Ranger plug-in hybrid. Can you do a quick search for that? It was announced this week at the IAA show in Hanover in Germany, so you should find that at the top of your search feed. And so this combines a traditional Ford Ranger, so those vehicles used for towing and payload and off-road and things like that, with some plug-in hybrid technology as well. There'll be variants like the Wild Track and the XLT trim, and the plug-in hybrid in Storm Track edition as well. Over here, it has more torque than a Ranger Raptor. It comes with the 2.3 litre Ford EcoBoost petrol engine, so pretty bulletproof on that by now. They know what they're doing with the EcoBoosts. 10-speed automatic transmission and a 75 kilowatt electric motor. Not the biggest battery in the world, 11.8 kilowatt hours usable, but you end up with having, say, way more power than something like a 3 litre V6 turbo diesel by having a smaller EcoBoost engine with a plug-in hybrid technology. And so big payload, about 1,000 kilograms, towing 3.5 kilograms. Of course, four-wheel drive system on this as well. And I like the way that Ford have kind of coalesced around these different phrases, which is auto EV, so the car will sort itself out. EV now, you can put in EV now, so you drive electric. EV later, if you're entering a low emission zone, or EV charge, and it uses the engine to charge the battery. I like how they're labeling those modes, on the screen. Of course, it's a Ford pickup, so it's got onboard Pro Power. I think 2.3 kilowatts is standard, and 6.9 kilowatts is going to be an option on that, with some 15 amp outlets. And so I'd love to get your thoughts, Dom, on where this sits in terms of it being a truck. It's on sale. It's for the UK and EU markets, on sale by the end of the year, I think, and whether this is a good compromise, at least for the next second half of this decade, for those that want to tow and have payload. We know that EVs struggle without a massive battery, or whether plug-in hybrid is perhaps an intermediary technology. What do you think?
I mean, I like it. I like it. I mean, like you said, battery electric vehicles aren't the best for towing in some cases, and you need to have like the Silverado EV, put a 200 kilowatt hour battery in that thing, and you can tow nice or comfortably for like 200 miles. But a plug-in hybrid might be the better way to go if you're towing like long distances at least. So this would be pretty nice, and I think it would be pretty welcome here too. Unfortunately, it's not coming to the US, so this is like just not coming to Europe, or just for Europe, and I imagine some other territories as well. Like I could see this in Australia. I think it would probably do pretty well there. Yeah. But then it has a lot of competition now too. Like you mentioned the Maxus earlier. Well, that's probably going to be pretty pricey. Did they say what the price is on this?
On this? Oh, very good question.
On the Ranger, sorry.
On the Ranger, I'm not sure. The Maxus, I think, was the outgoing one, the two-wheel drive T90 EV was 49, but I saw some offers for like 25,000. They're trying to get rid of stock, so who knows what they'll do with.
I expect it to be a lot more than that. Because it's got a bigger battery, and it's on that Maxus. The new Maxus is on an all electric dedicated electric platform, where the T90 is not. It's on a gas / battery kind of platform. So Yeah, I just expected the e-Tron 9 to be a lot pricier.
Mm.
So this could, this would be a lot more, I think, a more affordable choice, I would expect. Maybe a little bit smaller in size, but
Yeah, I think
for
you'd call
Europe,
this.
I
I
think,
think you'd call this a mid-size.
yeah, I don't know. We call this a mid-size, Tom, or is this like more compact?
Amazing! It's quite a chunky vehicle for us.
Yeah, I think more mid-size. It's definitely not compact.
Okay.
The Rangers are not as small as they used to be.
True.
Pretty sure it's bigger than the Tacoma, which in itself isn't as small as they used to be. So
Right.
yeah, it's not compact. The Ranger.
Yeah, I know the Tacoma is thought of as a mid-size now.
So
yeah, they just kept getting bigger and bigger. I owned like
Right.
6 Tacomas, and every year they just kept getting bigger. It seemed like every model I got.
I'll try and find some pricing for you. Yeah, popular as you say in Australia. Ute culture is really big. Much more so than over here as well. This will be made in South Africa, actually in Silverton, and delivery start in, they said, spring 2025 across the European market. And so I think this could get, certainly for businesses that want to go green, for businesses that can plug in these vehicles overnight, businesses that do have to go into low emission zones and run on electric power alone, I think this would be really popular. Just a business that doesn't want to buy a diesel powered Ranger. I think that this could certainly find a market. In terms of pricing, I'll have a quick look at Motor One. They did a good lineup, a write-up on this. No, I can't see pricing either, but that'd be interesting.
Do you think this is a miss, Tom? Do you think this is a miss for not bringing it to the US?
I don't know. I almost think for the US, well, I'm looking through, my EV colored glasses. I would want to see double the battery pack. I'd want to see a 25 kilowatt hour battery pack. We drive longer distances here. I think we would end up using the gas engine a lot more than maybe they do in a lot of European areas. I'm not against the plug-in hybrids. I don't personally want one. I don't necessarily think that I fall into the category of needing one. I can make all electric work just fine for pretty much whatever I need. But there are a lot of people where the plug-in hybrids make sense. But the 11 kilowatt hour battery pack, you're talking 20 miles, 25 miles of real world range.
Yeah, real world.
In the winter, it's going to be less than 20 miles. If you have some cargo in the back, if you've got 800 pounds of sheetrock or whatever you put in the back, now you're looking at, again, well down under 20 miles of range. You might be driving on the combustion engine by the time you even arrive at work, let alone starting to do work with it. I'd love, for plug-in hybrids to just have a bare minimum of 50 miles AER. To me, the 20-mile plug-in hybrids are so 2018. It's just the battery's just not big enough, in my opinion.
That's Super Mario mentioned. Super Mario makes a good point. The BYD Shark, which is another electric plug-in electric pickup truck, BMD Shark for Australia, and it's in Mexico as well. 29.58 kilowatt hour battery, which is kind of getting up there, a nice chunky size. And for the US, we have also the Ram. Was it not the Revolution? The Ram Charger? No,
Ram Charger, I think it is.
Yeah,
it's the truck.
Yeah, Ram Charger.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be right. That's going to be a plug-in hybrid with a huge battery. I forget the exact size off the top of my head, but I'm thinking it's like
100 kilowatt hours. It's like 95 kilowatt hours.
Right.
And an engine inside it as well to be a range extender, so never driving the wheels. So that's it. Yeah, they didn't even give WLTP range. They said targeted 28 miles of range in this.
Right.
That's not official, so they won't. Yeah, you're right. It's I was talking about to someone about the new Skoda plug-in hybrid, the Superb. I'm not sure you've driven that. It's kind of a step up from the Octavia, a really big estate car, nice big family car here. And I think that's got a 22 kilowatt hour battery. And so that's obviously not a truck that's going to be towing and working. And then you're looking at really decent range, all electric range, where the combustion engine will almost never turn on if you have a typical commute and you charge it to 100% overnight. So, yes, a bigger
Brendan
battery.
says the RAM charger is 100 kilowatt hours with the Pentastar V6 in it, and that's an EREV configuration. So the battery, the engine is just charging the battery. It's not running anything, which is great. I think that's really the most efficient way, more efficient than a regular, plug-in electric hybrid. I like to see in that configuration. Yeah.
I don't mind admitting for now that trucks need either really big batteries, which has its own set of negatives, or they just need to use the embedded energy in combustion fuels, which is so high, why they're so popular, for the next period of the adoption curve. I don't think we need to eat our lunch completely now. I think we can save a little bit for later, and I don't see why every EV needs to fix every use case immediately. Look at some of the really big plant machinery that's being used in mining around the world. So a lot of mines, and we never talk about it because it's not consumer technology on this podcast, but a lot of mining equipment has gone electric because either they're underground where air quality is very low and you're only allowed to work for a certain period of time if we have to come out again or have breathing equipment, and that's awful for the people who operate this equipment. So a lot of mining equipment, even in open cast mining, has gone electric, but it's electric plugged in. So it's either they've got a big old beefy cable coming out the back of it, and it's either plugged into the mains, or because of the location of mines, it plugged into some big old batteries. But they're not rolling around on battery power. They've got no batteries inside them. They're just plugged. They're just like a big long extension lead that goes down. Or they're running on diesel generators, which happens. And I'm not going to try and defend that, but there's a lot of good use for electric.
I think they're starting to get some electric vehicles in the mining things. I've seen some different EVs in there. I saw in Australia there's a mining outfit that's using Rivians. They've imported some Rivian trucks and they're using those on site at a mine. So that's kind of neat.
I think we've all seen the example of the one that carries those big rocks up it drives up to the top of the hill empty, and then it regens when it's carrying a load more down it. This is a battery-powered big sort of vehicle used for mining. It regens more on the way down, and so because it's carrying all these rocks and stuff in the back. So there's a great example that's been featured many times over the years. All right, let's carry on talking about what we have all been up to this week, and in a minute we'll get on to Tom and Kyle taking a visit to a big charging manufacturer this week. Some really big news on that. But before we do, let's just finish off talking about some of the testing that Tom has been doing. And what is, I think, a bit of a sleeper issue that we'll end up talking about quite a lot with the Equinox. And that is, now Tom's now an Equinox owner, and that is the incredibly low voltage that the vehicle is at. Not just nominal voltage, but when you've drained the pack down, it's in. Is it the low 200s, Tom? It's an incredibly low voltage vehicle. We've talked about it before on the podcast. You've been doing more testing with it, but of course that means that in order to do the calculation of the volts times the amps, that if you even want to get anywhere near what this vehicle can take, you've got to go find a charger, which is probably going to be a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. Because the average 150s might not be able to deliver the amps that are needed. And that's never listed on the front, on the nice colourful sticker about this is the charge speed. You've got to go look at the plate on the side. But that's more likely going to be hunting down 350 kilowatt chargers just to charge this thing anywhere near what it can do as a peak. Tom, can you explain to people if they're not fully understanding about things like how many modules they've put in the pack, how this might be different from the other Ultium vehicles, and why this thing runs at such low voltage and what it means for charging?
I think
you may be on mute, Tom. And I was as well, sorry.
Sorry, I keep doing that because I've got, fans in the background of the garage, so I mute myself when I'm not talking. The good thing is, I don't know if I have to do such a deep dive into this because the batteries included, community these aren't, typical people that just walked off the street. You guys know a lot about, batteries and battery tech. So I'll just, give it a high level, overage. So obviously, that, the amount of kilowatts is determined by is volts times amps. So battery packs, we typically talk about 800-volt battery packs, 400-volt battery packs, and just put them in two categories. But that doesn't mean that the vehicles are all running at 400 volts or at 800 volts. I mean, on one side, you look at the Lucid Air, we call it an 800-volt battery pack, but it actually runs over 900 volts when it's fully charged. And on the other end, with 400-volt battery packs, some of them are much lower than 400 volts. Some of them are a little higher than 400 volts. So it's different. And with the GM Ultium system, it's a modular battery pack system, and the more modules you add, like the Equinox has the smallest version of the Ultium system right now in use. When the Bolt EV comes out in a year or two, that's going to have a smaller Ultium platform, so it'll have less battery modules. So my vehicle, the Equinox, has 2 less modules than, say, the Blazer or the Cadillac Lyriq. When you remove 2 battery modules, you lower the overall battery pack's nominal voltage. The more module you add, the higher the nominal pack voltage is. So my pack voltage, the nominal pack voltage, is under 400 amps. It's like
335.
No, under 300 amps. No, I think is the nominal, the peak is 335, right? Isn't the nominal like, what's the nominal say on the Equinox? Because I thought it was like 295 or something like that.
I guess, yeah, when it comes down, I guess when it's full, it's 335. I
Right,
guess.
yeah, that's when it's full, but that's not how they call the nominal. I think the nominal's around 290. When I first plug in, it's at like 260. It's incredibly low. It's a very low pack voltage. So in order to charge fast, since the volts are low, you need more current, you need more amps. So the Equinox can charge it up to 500 amps, which is a high current draw. Now the 350 kilowatt DC fast chargers can deliver 500 amps. The 150 kilowatt DC fast chargers in the US, the vast majority of them, like 95% of them, can only deliver 350 amps. So what happens is, as with most electric vehicles, at a low state of charge, the vehicle will draw its maximum amperage. And at some point, it starts lowering its natural program curve as it starts lowering the amount of amps that it calls for. The pack voltage is raising, but not nearly at the same rate that the amperage is lowering. So when you first plug in an Equinox at a very low state of charge, it's calling for 500 amps. If you're on a 150 kilowatt DC fast charger, it's only getting 350. But what I found was, and I did my charge recordings on both side by side, 150 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt. I did a 0 to 100 charge recording and also a 20 to 80 charge recording. So I had 4 recordings in this video. I've now done 10 to 80% on both 150 and 350. That's going to be my next video. And while I expected the 350 to charge much quicker because it's getting the full amps, it's really not what happened. But for the first 8 minutes or so, it's way ahead of the 150 because it's giving the vehicle 500 amps. It's charging at 150 kilowatts. The vehicle's charging at like 98 kilowatts on the 150. But then, and this is typical of GM Ultium vehicles, it goes into a massive thermal derating. After charging at 500 amps for like 8 or 9 minutes, I'm overheating the components, and the vehicle's like, whoa, we're getting too hot here. And all of a sudden you see, and the good thing about the EV Go stations is it gives you the amps and the volts on the screen. The Electrify America screens don't show that. And the great thing about it is you can see how the Equinox starts calling for less amps at the exact time, and it drops the power draw way down to like 64 kilowatts when I'm only at like 25% state of charge or something, like 30% state of charge, something like that. So it goes from drawing 500 amps to down to like, I think it was 300 amps or somewhere around the 260 amps, something like that. So now the 150 kilowatt station catches up. And in sometimes it actually passes that you get ahead, but just for a short period of time, because then the vehicle starts thermal derating on the 150 kilowatt, which had been holding, 100 kilowatt the whole time. Now it starts thermal derating, and then the 350 goes ahead of it. So this is kind of and I know Simon says what Tom's saying in the real world really makes no difference. So, it's real geeky, Simon. I get that. A lot of people just plug in and walk away and they don't even pay attention. But we have to do this to show people what's happening, and it is important. So basically, what I found so far, it only matters if you're going to plug in at a low state of charge and stay for like 10 or 15 minutes. Then you go to a 350 because you will charge faster. But if you're going to charge for a long period of time, from any starting point, it makes no difference if you're at a 150 or a 350, even though it should make a difference. But it doesn't, because GM still hasn't worked out their thermal issues. And every time I charge an Ultium vehicle, the Hummers I've charged more than a dozen times, I've never had a completely repeatable charging session with a Hummer EV. Never. On every time I've charged. Whereas on the other side, you look at my Lightning and even the Rivian, and they're almost identical charging curves. When I plug in, every time I charge, I know what I'm going to get. It's repeatable. The vehicles, even though the Rivian does massive thermal derating, it's very predictable. It seems like with the GM Ultium systems, it's like a mixed bag. So I'm going to put all my charge recordings in like a month or so on a graph so you could see exactly what it looks like I did with the Lightning. And if you remember, everything was like a perfect curve. Like it just, I had it up with all in different colors and everything looked like almost perfect. This is going to be schizophrenic. It's going to be all over the place. And I don't like that, because people should know what to expect when they go to a DC fast charger. They should know that, okay, in 20 minutes, I know I'm going to get 80% charge or whatever. I'm not finding that with reliably with the Equinox just yet. So that's my rant.
Interesting. No. And I think that is interesting because, again, people, we're in the adoption curve now, where people will buy a vehicle expecting and be told by a salesperson maybe, or they did their research on the internet and look at the spec sheet. This is what I expect my car to charge at, because the peak speed is often listed. And even if they appreciate a little bit more about EV charging, which is okay, so it might not always be at this peak speed because they understand it slows down, which not everybody does, but some people get that eventually when they learn about EVs, that actually, depending on the charger they go to, they're going to a 150 kilowatt DC fast charger and not understanding, why my car doesn't even go anywhere near where it's meant to. Or again, with the throttling and thermal management on a 500 amp charger. So I don't know.
But Martin, when you say what it's supposed to be, GM knows that they have issues with this. Okay. And they don't promise charge times. That if you notice on GM vehicles, they say in 8 minutes you can add 80 miles. Like they give a very short thing. They'll say like you can add 80 miles in 10 minutes or 100 miles in 10 minutes. That's how they always talk about charging, because you only get 10 minutes of reliable charging before the vehicle starts to thermally derate. They don't say, like Hyundai comes out and says 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. And God damn it, it's 18 minutes. I did the EV9 last week, which we're probably going to talk about in a few minutes, and they say on the EV9, 10% to 80% in 22 minutes. It was 22 minutes when I did
amazing.
It's not like with GM. All they'll give you is, if you notice on all their vehicles, they'll talk about the first 10 minutes of charging or 8 minutes or something like that. But like, you can add 90 miles in 9 minutes. And that's like, oh, wow. So people say, well, I can add 180 miles in 18 minutes. That's awesome. But no, that's not how it works. Because
it works.
They give you the length just up till they know in most cases it's going to thermally derate. So they need to get that straightened out. But all that said, we overanalyze DC fast charging. I think from time to time we focus too much on it. I'll never say don't buy the Equinox because it's a horrible DC fast charging vehicle. It's not a horrible DC fast. It's not a good one, but it's not a horrible one. If you look at all of the competing vehicles to the Equinox, same size as a Model Y, similar size to it, Ioniq 5, Mustang Mach-E, Volkswagen ID3, ID4. All of those vehicles will charge faster to 80% than the Equinox. All of them. It will come in dead last. It won't be that far behind some of them. It'll be way behind an Ioniq 5, But so if you take 5 or 6 road trips a year, it means you're going to wait 10 more minutes at a DC fast charger. Is that really that much? Should we really be micro analyzing this like we are and going crazy over a 10-minute stop? Now, if you're a salesman and you drive 350 miles a day and you wanted to get an EV to save money on with your commuting and everything, now you have to really think about DC fast charging because you're going to be doing it every day, and 10 minutes every day is going to add up. So, but for the average person that, is going to use DC fast charging once in a while, it doesn't make a difference. If you live in an apartment and you're getting an EV and you can't charge at home, and you're going to rely on DC fast chargers, now you have to start weighing a little bit more into how fast is this thing going to charge? Because, if it means every week you're 15, 20 minutes longer, that becomes inconvenient. So that's why we do these recordings. But I always try to stress to people, you have to understand your own situation. If you're not going to be DC fast charging all the time, don't let the fact that a vehicle takes 10 more minutes to charge to 80% prevent you from buying it if you like the vehicle, because, just, get an extra cup of coffee or something, or walk to the Starbucks that's 2 blocks away rather than the one that's right in your parking lot. And, you won't even notice the time.
Dom, any thoughts before we move on?
No, I think that's pretty much pretty good, really. Yeah, Tom's got it all, but yeah, I want to hear what else he's been driving this week and charging.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on, I'll just echo Tom's thoughts on charging. We focus a lot on DC fast charging, and anyone that listens to even a quick 5 minutes of my podcast will know that I'm always banging on about AC charging. In fact, on Friday's edition, I do a story about a company called UK Power Networks. Now, UK Power Networks is our largest DNO, so a distribution network operator. So that's not the whole of the country, but UK Power Networks are responsible for delivering power to about 8 million homes in London, the southeast, east of England. And they announced today that they have changed their guidance, and now they are opening up 5 kilowatt. They say it's safe. They've looked at all the various factors involved, and 5 kilowatt lamppost charging is appropriate. And so, whereas before I think the guidance was that some of the aging infrastructure and cabling wouldn't be able to handle it, and that's it's a piece of news that literally nobody is going to talk about today, but I will, because I'm really excited about it, because it means for 8 million people who in London. We're a very old country anyway. We're all living on top of each other in terraced houses, and a lot of people can't park on a driveway, but there's lampposts everywhere. You often can't even park outside your own house in this country because you've got to park on the street, and that spot's taken outside your front door, so you park down the road. And lampposts are everywhere, and 5 kilowatt AC charging overnight is all that we need to refill most EVs, apart from those with the biggest of batteries or those that do the most miles. If you're doing a work commute or running the kids to school or getting your weekly shop, then a 5 kilowatt lamppost charger on slow AC charging is not sexy. No one will talk about that. But they're like, yeah, actually, we can do that, and we're opening that up. And so I think Ubitricity is the big one that most people will know. Loads of hundreds, if not thousands, of lamppost chargers across London run by them. Massively important. So there you go. That's me and my we talk about DC fast charging too much rant.
Right, yeah, but
AC is so important.
It's a great point. It's a great point. And those light posts, and there's power everywhere in cities. Like they could have like little charge points, 120 volt charge points everywhere. Don't even need to be 220. Well, I guess you would in Europe because everything runs on 220, but or 240 or 208 or whatever it is. What is it over there?
230 to 240. Depends on where you live. Like I got quite chunky voltage here, so something with a bit lower pack voltage charges okay at home. So yeah, it's all 230 to 240 on single phase at least. Don't get me started on that. We still have 3-phase now that we're moving into an EV future. Many European countries do have 3-phase. Let's talk a little bit about now that before we do DC fast charging and finish off the podcast today. Tom, you mentioned EV9. I know you couldn't do all of the testing you wanted to do on that, but any more to say about the EV9? It just gets rave reviews from nearly everyone that drives it.
I really enjoyed my time with it. I had it for a week, and it's actually a really good choice for more affordable 7-seat long range electric vehicle. I say more affordable because the others are expensive. I mean, I have a Rivian R1S, and this is a lot less than a Rivian R1S. You don't get all the performance, you don't get all the premium feel that you get in the R1S. But they're very expensive vehicles, and the EV9 is a lot lower price point, great range, awesome charging capabilities, better than my Rivian, much better than my Rivian. I mean, look at what we put up if you're watching on YouTube, the charging curve. In this video, I don't even have out yet. Look at that chunky charging curve. Pulls just about 200 kilowatt as soon as you plug in, and it holds it to 55% state of charge.
It grows. You plug in at like 200, it goes to 220 kilowatts.
Well, it's requesting the same amperage. It's just that the pack voltage is increasing. That's why it's just doing that gradual climb. So, I mean, you look, obviously it's starting to fall off a lot at 75%. But it hits that 80% in, as the manufacturer says, in just a little over 20 minutes. And this is the big 100 kilowatt hour pack. I mean, this is 99.8 kilowatt hour usable. The only weird thing you'll notice at the very end, you see how it goes flat from 97% to 100%? So that's the charging power. So basically, according to this graph, it pulled no kilowatts and went from 97% to 100%. The graph isn't wrong. That's what was displayed on the EVgo station. So when I hit 97% charge, the charging power went down to 0. And it stood there as went to 98%, then a couple minutes later 99%, and then 100%. So I think it was just a matter of the communication between the vehicle and the charger. The vehicle was telling the charger it's not full yet, I guess it was telling it was full. It wasn't calling for any power. So I don't know what was going on there, but it was telling it wasn't full, but it wasn't calling for power. And then as the vehicle realized, oh, wait a minute, the cells are balanced, it went up to 98, 99. I've never seen that before in any of my charge recordings. But then when I got in the vehicle, it said 100% charged. And but it was kind of weird at the end. I went for like 4 or 5 minutes where, it was probably doing calibration checks, Nebula, but I'd never seen that before, where the state of charge went up 3% while the charger wasn't delivering any power to the station. I've seen that a lot at 99%. With various vehicles, weird things once it hits 99%. And I've even had the station shut off a lot at 99%, but then the vehicle says 100%, when I get in it. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on there, but I'll have a video out on this pretty soon. But what an awesome charge. Look at that. Look at how that the power that just, goes right in. Not quite as good as like, Taycan, e-tron, with how it just holds the power all the way across. But damn, that's a good chunky charging curve.
Yeah,
I almost feel like we got a little bit better results when we drove this the EV9 from Fort Collins to Las Vegas and back. And I almost feel like we had a little bit higher percentage here, like at 80%. I feel like the power was just a bit higher, like over 100, but
it was a little under 100. But you know what, Dom? There's so many times, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is so many times I watch the charge recording and I'm like, wow, and in my mind I have, I'm imagining what the charging curve is going to look like. Then I put it on paper and I'm like,
right.
I thought it was higher here, so I'm not saying that could happen with you, but it's happened to me plenty of times where I look at it and then I'll have to go through the recording again and say, was this plotted wrong? Because this isn't what I remembered, but it was plotted correctly, and that is what happened, So, I mean, this is a matter of such short amount of minutes. You said 80%. If you looked at it at 76%, it was over 100 kilowatts. So in your mind, you would have been like, wow, it's almost 80%. And we're still at 112. That's great. But then you walked away, and as soon as you walked away, it went down. That I think that's what happens with me.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I would need to go back actually and look at the video of that race to Vegas. All right.
Yeah, that's interesting. And talking of Kia, because we are with the EV9, I think it's either the chairman of the board or the CEO this week talking about how they want to replace the Picanto, which you'd call like a super compact car. With that would be the EV1, but it will depend on battery technology to be a compelling. They can make one now, but it wouldn't be very compelling in terms of range or price. But they're aiming for sub 15,000, and also an electric Stinger GT. These things are very possible with the EGMP in terms of all-wheel drive and lots of performance and things like that. So, I'd meant to ask Tom. Go ahead.
One more thing, I wanted to bring up a comment Don brought out, that these charts would be more useful if they included a timeline. Don, I don't know if you've watched my videos or whatever, but I do 2 sets of charts. This is the charging curve. Then I do a time to charge chart, which plots exactly that out. And I'm one of the few people that actually do that, where I make a second set of graphs and tell you exactly what % at what time of charging. So we just didn't bring it up here today, but in the full video when I analyze the EV9 charging, it'll be in that video.
Yeah, so definitely go check out Tom's video if you're interested in all those like nerdy details for sure. Yeah.
Cool. And before we, now that I've mentioned how DC fast charging is talked about too much, we are going to finish the podcast today on DC fast charging because Tom did a visit and it's really interesting. We're going to get to that in a moment. And then one final story that I've not seen reported anywhere that I thought was kind of interesting, that again, nobody else would, but we're amongst friends here of, a few thousand people who are super into, electric vehicles. And that is Herbert Diess gave an interview to a German publication. And again, if you've seen this reported elsewhere, I haven't seen it anywhere. It's dated 12th of September. The publication is, and for any of our German listeners or German speakers, I apologize in advance. I think I pronounce it Wirtschaftswoche. I think that means either Business Week or Economy Week. I'm okay with French, Spanish, Italian. You get me on German, I get really confused. So apologies. But it's like a German publication. He is now the chairman of a different company, ex-CEO of Volkswagen, by the way. And he went in for a pretty heavy tackle on Elon Musk for what I've called the bromance in the past. And they were pretty close CEOs. I think if anyone was going to end up at Tesla to replace Mr. Musk when he, just runs social media full time or goes to Mars, I thought this person would be certainly on the short list. But he was really heavy in his criticism, saying that others like Waymo and Pony AI are far ahead in autonomy, and saying that Dave says decent pronunciation. Thank you, my friends. And that the trend that Tesla is seeing, which is declining sales and having an underused manufacturing capability at Tesla, which is, that is just a statement of fact. They could make more cars than they are at the moment, although Mr. Musk recently said on social media that China was running at flat chat and they couldn't make any more, and that they've lost their way, and that there's no innovation at the company anymore, that he's being dragged into... Oh, hang on, something's going, saying, do you want to subscribe? No, I don't. And that he spends too much time on both social media and politics, and that he's ignoring what he should be working on, which is Tesla, and that it won't maintain its status because of, I think the phrase was, and again, I'm using Google Translate, a stagnation in product development. That was interesting. The Model 3 Highland, I think, is very, very good. Model Y Juniper, I think, will be very good. Some, I think, great innovation coming out there with how the Cybertruck is physically built in terms of its architecture, not what it looks like and stuff. But I think Tesla is innovating. I think we're talking a lot about Tesla charging on the show today and how they're innovating by opening up their network, which they built and nobody else did. So I think a heavy...
No, I'm not seeing it. I have to disagree. I don't know. I would lean with Herbert Diess more. I think he's really dropped the ball on developing like batteries, 4680s. Who knows? I mean, they put all their marbles in that one 4680 bucket for all their batteries, and they don't really seem to be quite performing like they wanted to, and it's taking forever. And I'm not sure. we were talking about degradation earlier, and like I think Kyle was mentioning to me too that he's seen a fair amount of degradation on his Cybertruck, which has the 4170s in it.
Oh, that's
But,
interesting.
I would have liked to see like a new Model X, new Model S. I mean, the new Lucid is really like what the Model S should be now, and it's just not there. It's like they leapfrogged Tesla. I believe in their technology. The Lucid batteries, or not batteries, or their motors are a lot smaller. There's just and then you look at China. There's a lot of Chinese companies with batteries that charge a lot faster than anything Tesla is offering. So I think because Tesla was really on the cutting edge. I mean, for longest time, they're really the number one, always out in front. And now the little bits, little parts of their technology are behind other people's in experience and in functionality.
But you could argue that that's simply the maturation of the company, and that they've become, just a big car company now. I'm sorry, they're not a car company. Tesla fans tell me off. But you could argue that they're just in their groove now. But obviously he comes from traditional OEM world where you do need a regular cadence of updates and mid-cycle refreshes and, hey, we've got some new paint colors and, oh, we're doing this, which is how the car industry stimulates interest and car reviewers and customers get excited about these things. And Tesla doesn't do that.
So it doesn't change just because the car is electric. That stuff doesn't change. Consumers still want to see something kind of new. Humans love novelty, and so when you add a new color, maybe some graphics, in the motorcycle world, it used to be like a running joke. A new, like the new Honda, whatever, would have, nice, bold new graphics, for the 19 whatever next model year, and it seems funny, but it really kind of works with consumers, and it's and same with in the electric world. Whether Tesla wants to follow that. That way at all, but
well, that's
I think
interesting.
I think Pete pointed out, you pulled the comment up how I feel about it, and he and I have talked about this, is that and maybe they can't do it for 25,000, but I think that's Dom, you talked about a new Model S, a new Model X. I don't necessarily think that should be the direction. I don't think they're going to sell a lot of those vehicles. They need to go down market. They need to make mass market vehicles.
That too.
Yeah, I know, but I'd put all my effort into, and Cybertruck's a cool vehicle, and it's a lot of fun. It's cool to me. What it did was it got Tesla in the news constantly. They're still in the news constantly, and that's a good thing for the company. But all the money that went into that, I would have loved to have just poured into a $30,000, even if they couldn't make one that goes 350 miles, even if it went 275 miles, because it's kind of a small battery pack. You got to keep the price down. It can't have a huge battery pack. But with the Tesla Supercharger network, you don't need 350 miles. And if it's a smaller car, it's not going to be a coast to coast driver. It's going to be something for people in cities and so forth, and in rural areas. But that's what I would have, if I was running the company. I would have poured everything I could into building a Bolt EUV sized $30,000 275-mile car. I mean, that would have been my next vehicle.
Right, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I know. Well, even if it took until now or now to get out, but that's I would have put all my marbles in that mass market, super affordable car, and it's nowhere to be seen right now unless they're really hiding it. Every indication we have is that they've kind of put their affordable car on the back burner. We always talk about the $25,000 car, and somebody put in the comments the $25,000 car is now a $30,000 car, which is true. I think it's unrealistic to expect them to put out a 200, 250, close to 300-mile EV for 25 grand today. It's unrealistic to do that. The economics aren't there, but they can do it for 30. If GM could put out the Equinox for 33, which is bigger, with a much bigger battery pack than what I'm talking about, that Tesla can do something smaller for 30. And if it qualifies for the full federal tax credit, now you're talking low 20s. That's the vehicle we need in this country, I think, more so than the Cybertruck or a new model, another $75,000, $85,000 Model S. They're not going to sell a ton of them. There's other high cost luxury EVs. Mercedes has them. Lucid Audi, they're out there now. Don't give, I'd almost give that market up. Let's go where they're not. And that's the $30,000 mass market EV.
Yeah.
If I were
And
Tesla.
And some of the competitors, even announced in the last month from China, have been incredibly compelling at much lower costs. They've got drivers displays and head-up displays and integration with the smart life. That a lot of Chinese buyers want different things to Western buyers. They want a lot of high integration with smarts and voice control and things like that with they use in the rest of their life. And but also great interior quality and all those things. And those cars are coming out from big names as well, from the Neos, Nextpunks, and BYDs that aren't mucking about. And Tesla has access to that labor cost in China, and so they just keep churning out the cars from China. And they got some, more building on the way there in Shanghai. But I don't know, a lot to be happy about there. They just made their 100 millionth 4680, and I think only in June did they do their 50 millionth 4680. So they're ramping. I think they'll have full positive and negative cathode by the beginning of the year production. So lots going on, but interesting that someone as high profile as Herbert Diess has that opinion. And I think that is the general opinion as well from many that would like a bit more of a sizzle around the story at Tesla and perhaps a little bit less politics. I wouldn't mind that from the leader there. Right, a couple of things before we go. We do want to touch on the fact that, Tom, you had a really busy week, crazy busy week, but you did go to the launch of the opening of the US headquarters of an Italian company called Alpitronic. They make the hyperchargers, these HYC's 400s, 400 kilowatt charger. They can do like 500 amps or 600 amps boost, I think. But they 600 on a boost, and they go really big on efficiency, and that's kind of their headline is, hey, like 97.5% efficiency rate. Just quickly, Tom, this was like a fascinating visit. You were there with Kyle, actually. We saw some pictures online. You got invited along to go look behind the scenes.
Yeah, so yesterday Alpitronic had the official grand opening of its North American or American headquarters. This was their headquarters. It wasn't a factory. They actually make the units up in Wisconsin. So there you have a factory up and running there where they're making the units. And I don't know if you guys remember, but a month or so ago, Mercedes announced, Mercedes is making their own network. In addition to being one of the founding members of IONNA, Mercedes has their own network that they're building out in the US. They're going to be using the Alpitronic chargers for their network. So they're going to be in the ground soon. And yeah, they had this official opening where we went to. Some of you guys recognize the name Brendan Flash. He works for Alpitronic. He's very active on social media. He's been here in our chats in the past. Has his own YouTube channel on EVs. Brendan works for them, and he made sure me and Kyle were there. So three of us got to spend the day together hanging out. And it was more of a, it was for like the mayor of the town to be there and everything. One of those things. Kyle actually stayed longer than me. I flew in and out of North Carolina in the day. Kyle stayed overnight, so he was able to stay till after everybody left, so he could do some of his deep dives with talking more technical stuff. It really wasn't possible to do it when I was there yesterday. So we're each going to have our own video out. He's going to do more of a technical deep dive. I talked to the CEO of the company. I talked to Brendan. We do kind of high level discussions on the charging equipment, what they offer, how it works. And also, here's one of the things that was really interesting. Martin, you mentioned efficiency, how proud they are about their efficiency. Something else that they seem to be very proud of and talk about all the time, and that's reliability and uptime. And that's what I found more interesting than the efficiency. If I come in there with my EV, I don't really care very much if it's 98% efficient or 95% efficient. It doesn't really matter that much to me. I might pay a little bit more, might have to buy a couple more kilowatt hour, but 50 cents, who cares? But I want the damn thing to work. I want to show up and know that the charge is going to be working. And they seem to be very, very, pushing the fact that we have incredible high uptime. They have a lot of charging equipment in Europe right now, thousands and thousands of chargers. They actually do 160,000 DC fast charging sessions either every day or every week. It's got to be every week, right? I forget. One of those. It was 160,000 either every day or every week. Might be every day. Yeah, but anyway, a tremendous amount. Millions and millions per year of charging sessions, and it's just growing. So they have a lot of data on how reliable it is, and they also designed the equipment so that when something does break, very rarely will a field technician have to repair it in the field. They'll show up, open the box, slide out whatever broke, put a new one in, and drive away. When I was recently at Electrify America DC fast charger, there was a technician there for hours trying to fix one of the units. And while that could be the case with these, something could have broken that can't be pulled out. Most of all the components can just be slid out, replaced back in. They have this rack system, this like lift that rolls up to the charger. So because the components are heavy, the technician doesn't have to carry it. It pulls out and slides onto the rack, and that rolls over to their van, their service vans. And then there's a rack in the van where it slides from the mobile rack onto the stationary rack. It's a really nice setup. I go over that in the video that I'm going to eventually put out when I edit it. But so yeah, that to me, guys, was what I thought was very interesting, because my biggest gripe right now is reliability on the chargers out there. It's one thing for us to put out, 100 DC fast chargers a month across the country. It's another thing to have them work, 6 months after they've been put out. So
yeah,
hopefully this next generation of charging equipment is more reliable than what we had previously.
I love the Alpitronic stuff, and if it's 400 kilowatts, of course, that means you can charge 2 vehicles at 200 kilowatts, and I think they scale in 50 kilowatts. Yeah. So the Kempower stuff we talked about last week, we were trying to, I think we asked how site-wide is the Kempower distribution. I think we got to the bottom of it after we went off the air last week or the week before, and it is in groups of 8 pedestals at a time, not site-wide when you got like 30 or 40 Kempower pedestals. That I think that's 25 kilowatt power blocks, and Alpitronic is 50. But either way, once you're charging 2 cars at once and one is starting to fill up, and so the power level comes down, you can give more to the other car that turned up afterwards. And I've never had a bad experience with Alpitronic hardware. That just could be because it's being used more on recent installs and it's not been in the ground 10 years. But either way, all very good. Before we go, a quick mention of some heavy duty stuff this week. IAA show over here in Europe, in Hanover in Germany, saw a bunch, I won't get into it, but a bunch of commercial stuff. One of them was they brought two semi trucks over here. The semi-truck has been redesigned for European roads and has got regulatory approval, which I didn't know they were undergoing. I think they redesigned some front suspension stuff, and also that helped them improve regen, actually. They've added a sleeper cab.
Are you talking about who's semi? The Tesla?
Tesla, yeah.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
So Dan Priestley, who's the head of the lead project on semi-truck, was over here doing a keynote at IAA, which I watched, and was fascinating. Wasn't the longest, but it was absolutely fascinating to see they've added some new storage to that you can open the kind of cabinets on the side undersides with the interior touchscreen. It's got a sleeper cab. Had to change it a little bit for European roads. They're not launching them in Europe like today. He said the priority is still to scale in the US and to go above just being with PepsiCo and having those Frito-Lay deliveries. But they also did a quick keynote sitting down with the head of electrification at PepsiCo. And they talked about how, they've been using the semi-truck. One of them's done 245,000 miles in 18 months. And for long-range, regional, and local, depending on whether it's beverages or Frito-Lay stuff. And he said, look, it's just, costs us a lot less to run. You can replace a Class 8 diesel truck like for like with regular charging. And they've learned a lot over the last 18 months about when to charge, when how, if you're loading and unloading the vehicles, to have chargers there at the loading bays so you can charge while. And also over here in Europe, we have a lot more stringent rules on driver breaks and not having tired driving in terms of trucking. It's not a very attractive career for many young people, and they hope that by bringing electrification to that and a bit more autonomy as well, they could make trucking they're having a real brain drain or just a real drain of talent from that industry as people retire and don't come into it. And we need, we want to go to the supermarket and buy food. We need people to deliver it. And they want it to make a much more attractive industry. So it was interesting. And then Dom You also noticed this week that there's going to be a kind of a pilot 800-mile corridor on the I-10 corridor between LA and El Paso in Texas. Some of the world's largest shippers, Microsoft, PepsiCo, Maersk, all going to do some long-haul electric truck operations testing. Now, Terawatt Infrastructure are looking after the kind of the solutions for that. And you actually interviewed the head of solutions a little while ago. Can you just fill us in on that story before we go?
Yeah. Yeah, 11 months ago, we talked to Amelia Sibley, who is the head of solutions, they call over there at Terawatt, and she was great. And we should probably have her back on again because this is pretty interesting. This is like, a number of, I think they're going to put in 6 different charging hubs along that 800-mile stretch, which is actually a great stretch of highway too. If anyone ever wants to go for a nice drive along the I-10 there. Yeah, so this was kind of put together by this like a nonprofit sort of organization called Smart Freight Center, and they sort of hooked up the carriers with the infrastructure side of things and got things kind of going. So this would be like a pilot program. And by identifying the key learnings and developing the wider ecosystem around electric trucks, they hope to attract other shippers, other companies and carriers to start transitioning or planning on transitioning their own vehicles at scale. And so it's just like the first of I think there's just already a few other places where you can charge like heavy duty trucks, but for like a nice long stretch like that across the country, across Texas in that heat, I think this will be a great proving ground to get that kind of kicked off, because we really need, heavy duty trucking to go electric. I think I think it'll open a lot of eyes when you see, we were talking about the Tesla Semi earlier. I mean, the capability of that, it has the capability to replace like a lot of the over-the-road trucking now if we have the infrastructure in place. So this is hopefully will be kickstarting that transition.
Yeah, really important to do that piece of work as well. So we'll keep you updated on that. Hey, before we go, Tom, have you got your new Stingray karaoke app on your Ford F-150 Lightning? I gather that's coming. You're going to be singing along while you're charging. If anyone sees Tom Logney doing a little bit of air guitaring or singing, he's on his new karaoke app on the F-150 Lightning.
Yeah, air guitaring maybe, but I'm not singing. I do not have the voice for singing, guys.
Perfect.
Maybe in the shower.
Karaoke's all about.
Nobody can hear that. Not in the F-150,
Nice. So the karaoke app is rolling out, I think soon, over the air. Mackie owners get it next. I think some Lincolns are going to get it and some stuff as well. But yeah, so bust out some karaoke while you're charging in the Lightning. I think that's the first vehicle to get it. A bit of Tesla owners have done it for a while, but it's coming to the Fords as well this week. We heard that news. That's your podcast and your show for today. Hey, if you're watching the YouTube version of this, have you hit the thumbs up and you hit the like? You know how these things work. It's all an algorithm. The more that YouTube can see that you liked it, they'll recommend it to people who are also looking at maybe Tom's videos or Kyle's videos or Dom's videos with Drive Electric with Dominic. And then it appears in that little thing, hey, you might like this video too. Because there's no doubt, there's a few more people might be interested in this show. So if you hit the thumbs up, that's what it does in the background. It tells people who are watching EV content, hey, you might also like this, and we'd really appreciate you doing that. I know it's going to take a couple of seconds of your time. Makes a really big difference to us as we grow this podcast. But thank you very much, as always, for taking part. Next week, TBC on what time we show up. It may be a recorded one next week, and we'll tell you more about why that is. For now, our lips are sealed. That's the end of our show. Questions, comments, all that kind of stuff. You know what to do. Either get in touch. You go batteries-included-podcast.com, or if you're watching the visual version of this, leave a comment, get in touch, and you can hit subscribe as well so you never miss a show. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon. Hey, Tom, say ciao.